Now, I want you to forget anything you may have heard about the old locations, some people still have a somewhat negative impression of the company. That old restaurant was kind of left to rot for quite a while, but I want to reassure you, Fazbear Entertainment is committed to family fun and above all, safety.
Today I want to prove to the best of my ability what pizzeria we see in the FNAF 4 minigames. Is it Fredbear's Family Diner, or is it the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location? This video will be covering the next section of the FNAF timeline since my last FNAF theory video. We will be covering years from 1973 to 1983. And I will only be using in-game evidence to help support my theory. I will reference the FNAF 2 movie, however, it will be in a way of showing why we should not be using it for the in-game canon story timeline. And so my fellow FNAF theorists, welcome to FNAF class, let's dive into it. In my last FNAF theory video, I put forward the theory that Fredbear's Family Diner opened in the year of 1973 due to the evidence that I found in the third birthday tape of David, which was recorded in 1973. It is the earliest place in the timeline where we see a reference to Fredbear's Family Diner, namely being their pizza box. I also explained that it lines up perfectly with the net earnings chart that we find from MCM. In 1973, there is a massive spike of net earnings, which is implied through emails and VHS tapes to be the start of the Fazbear project, which would have been the version 1 of the Springlock suits as well as the opening of Fredbear's Family Diner. I believe throughout the year of 1973 and 1974, Henry Emily and William Afton saw this massive success and popularity through this small pizzeria that they opened, and decided to take the next few steps to create their own franchise. Something new and improved, but already using a lot of the characters that they had created for Fall Fest. Some of these characters we got to see in Secret of the Mimic, which takes place in 1979. We got to see Roller Skating Chica as well as Pirate Foxy. But also in Help Wanted 2, we play one of the Fall Fest levels, the Carousel, in which we see multiple carousel horses in the same design as the toy animatronics. So by 1973, when Fredbear's opened, they already had the designs for the entire crew of the toy animatronics: Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and Toy Foxy. And it was possible that they were holding these back to see how the success of Fredbear's Family Diner would do as an entertainment restaurant. And when they saw things were absolutely going insane, William Afton and Henry Emily gave the green light to Edwin to begin production on the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. Which brings us to the conversation of R&D in the basement of MCM. Playing Secret of the Mimic, we found this secret underground basement area that's called Research and Development. And down here we find the original mock version of what is supposed to be the very first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, equipped with prototype versions of the classic animatronics. And I want to carefully note here, not the unwithered versions of the Withers. I don't think they ever existed. Now, throughout MCM, from a couple employee memos and emails, we find out that Research and Development, this whole mock pizzeria, wasn't opened in 1973. No, it opened in 1975 and began its production from that point on, adding more to the fact that Fredbear's opened in 1973, giving them 2 years to see the success, and then starting the R&D department to work on the first franchise location, Freddy's. Now, obviously, a lot of things happen in the FNAF timeline, with Edwin going missing and the creation of the Mimic, but by the time we are playing as Arnold in Secret of the Mimic in 1979, not much is going on in MCM. It almost seems like everything is at a standstill. We see posters that Fredbear's Family Diner is still up and running, but nothing to confirm the fact that a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location has been opened by 1979, meaning that it most likely hasn't. But in Secret of the Mimic, we do learn something interesting from multiple emails that we find throughout MCM. William Afton and Fazbear Entertainment are trying to steal everything from MCM, including the employees. We even have theorized that he was able to suck out Henry Emily from MCM by bribing him to be able to help him run one of the new Freddy's locations. Just listen to this email. I need the rest of the Murray staff contact info. The sooner, the better. you get that for me, and I can sweeten the deal. How would you like to manage one of the new franchise locations, WA? Now, unfortunately, we don't have a date of when this email was sent. However, by the language that William Afton uses here, how would you like to manage one of the new franchise locations? In my opinion, it sounds like they haven't opened yet. They are working on the idea of the new locations, and therefore William Afton is offering Henry Emily the ability to run one of them. So this is just a rough guess, but I believe this email was sent to Henry either between 1974 and 1978. But that's not the only thing William Afton did. You see, by basically taking all of MCM's employees to come and work for Fazbear, and by constantly making changes to certain projects that they were working on with Henry Emily, Fazbear Entertainment caused MCM to run absolutely dry. But then William Afton came in and decided to buy out MCM, giving Edwin Murray a little glimmer of hope. And we see that expressed in this email. William Afton writes, "We would love to keep you on as a lead engineer. Although we would now technically own the land, we would never touch the house your parents built. We feel that this offer has been more than fair, considering how far behind you are. It's just too much for you to handle alone." Now, I believe due to the actions that we take as Arnold in 1979, I believe this email was sent to Edwin either late 1978, early 1979. But by the time we are there as Arnold, technically, Fazbear Entertainment owns everything. They own the rights to all these characters, they own the very land that MCM is built on, and they own Edwin Murray's own home. And so now that we have all of that out of the way, we come to the exciting question. When did the first franchise location of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza open? Now, I'm going to take a moment and talk about the FNAF 2 movie, because within the movie, we see the date 1982 as being the year that a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is currently up and running. Make a note that I said up and running and not opened in 1982. For all I know, in the movie's timeline, this could have opened up in 1979. But in the film, it is explained to us by some of the characters that this specific pizzeria is the original before the franchise locations, even though they bear the same name, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And they almost treat this location as I'm treating Fredbear's Family Diner from the game's timeline. Mind you, Fredbear's Family Diner has never been mentioned once in the FNAF movies thus far. And because of that, I think we have to be extremely careful bringing the movie's lore into the canon game timeline. I think there are hints and things that Scott has given us throughout the movies. However, big chunkets of lore like this, I don't think we can fit. But moving on, what evidence do I have that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened in 1983? Well, we're going to start with Security Breach Ruin, and the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza token that we find. This token is your basic arcade token that has the face of Classic Freddy, which would match what we saw R&D from MCM making, which was the Endo 01 versions of Classic Freddy. And on this token, it states in big, bold words, "Since 1983, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza." Now, I want to emphasize the word since. I believe it's making it very clear here that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has been a thing since 1983, even using the face of Freddy Fazbear as the one we would have expected at the very first Freddy's location. Now, we have a date here, 1983. Do we have a game in the FNAF timeline that takes place in 1983? Because we can simply go in and find clues and find an answer to this mystery. Well, unfortunately for us, that game is Five Nights at Freddy's 4, more specifically, the mini-games of FNAF 4. And unfortunately for us, FNAF 4 is one of the most complicated games in the FNAF franchise. Now, within these mini-games, we play as the crying child, William Afton's son, who is dreading the week coming up to his birthday because he absolutely hates the animatronics because of something he saw in the shadows. But for this video, we're not focusing in on what's happening with the crying child, we need to look at the environment. FNAF has always been extremely big on environmental storytelling. So what do we see within this minigame? We see a pizzeria with animatronics We also see a parking lot, and within close proximity to this pizzeria, we see the crying child's home. And so within environmental storytelling, we can conclude that this minigame is trying to show us that the crying child lives very close by to a up and running pizzeria. Now, what in-game location have we seen that would match this description? That's correct. MCM and Edwin Murray's home, which we learned in 1979 belongs to William Afton and Fazbear Entertainment. So what would be stopping William Afton to move his family into Edwin Murray's own home and be even closer to his work? Which leads me into the next segue. This cannot by any means be Fredbear's Family Diner, because in 1979, before William Afton is living at this house, Fredbear's Family Diner was already up and running on some other location. It definitely wasn't where MCM's facility stood, which is where the FNAF 4 minigames is telling us it should actually be. Instead, I think it makes way more sense to conclude that this is the first franchise location, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And I believe that there are some interesting things to show just how smart William Afton and Henry Emily were in their creation of this franchise. Namely, this TV show and these toy versions of the toy animatronics. The TV show, which takes place in 1983, the year we play these minigames, is entitled Fredbear and Friends, and it shows sprites of both Fredbear and the classic animatronics. And as we walk around the minigame map, we see this girl playing with toy versions of the toy animatronics that have features that the actual toy animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 2 have. For instance, Toy Chica is able to have her beak removed. And inside the home we see a toy Foxy, which is all torn up and mangled up, just like in FNAF 2. And on the building of this pizzeria, we see Fredbear. I believe with the success that William Afton had with Fredbear's Family Diner, it only made logical sense to use this iconic character at the forefront for their marketing for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That was until Freddy Fazbear himself became a recognizable enough character to carry on the marketing on his own. So starting a TV show called Fredbear and Friends and creating plushies of the classic animatronics, putting Fredbear on the front of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza building, it was drawing in all of the crowds who once went to Fredbear's, but now giving all of their attention to this new and improved Freddy's location. Now some of you might be saying, how come we only see Fredbear and Spring Bonnie within this pizzeria? And that's a very good question. First of all, I think it's very important to note that we don't get to see this pizzeria in its entirety. We really only see three main sections of it, starting at the front door to the back wall where the stage where Spring Bonnie and Fredbear are. We also do get a glimpse in the first section of a back room that looks like it was used for suiting up. And we also see the parts and service room, however we don't know where this is located in the pizzeria itself. So the pizzeria could be a whole lot bigger than what it appears to be from the minigames. Also, I think it's pretty obvious that there are more than just two animatronics at this pizzeria. During the minigames, we can get this specific Easter egg when we play as the crying child. The crying child sees his father, William Afton, helping a performer into a Spring Bonnie costume. Also, another performer wearing Fredbear walks into the same shot. If we walk further into the pizzeria, we see the shadows of a bear and a rabbit on a show stage singing. Now, who are casting these shadows if we just saw Spring Bonnie and Fredbear? Well, that can mean that they have multiple Spring Bonnies and Fredbears. However, it could also mean that there are other animatronics in the pizzeria. Now, I have seen these shadows be used for evidence as the shadow animatronics, but personally, I don't believe this because it doesn't really make sense for this to be the shadow animatronics. It just doesn't. Also, with the bullies having the masks of the classic animatronics, as well as the crying child himself owning the plushies of the classic animatronics, it's very safe to assume that there are other animatronics that do exist. However, there is one final thing I want to talk about: the toy animatronics. Because why are there truly toy versions of the toy animatronics at a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in 1983? And this for me is where the mystery is at a standstill, because it's entirely possible that there were versions of the toy animatronics that existed in 1983. However, there is no in-game evidence for this. Sure, I could try to pull some evidence from the movie, which has the toy animatronics existing in 1982, but I really don't want to do that because it's not a part of the game timeline. But what I can say 100% is that we know the designs for the toy animatronics have existed since the 70s. And so with that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on this timeline theory, as it's not extremely common. I would love to be able to engage with you all and talk about this theory. Just remember though to please be respectful. We are all in this together to try to solve the FNAF timeline. Because when I say that this is just a theory, I really do mean that. And if you would like to see weekly uploads on not only FNAF content but many other indie horror genres, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Have a fantastic day.